My French is very bad, so I won't even try. But yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about my work and the relationship between technology and innovation in my artistic practice. So yeah, just a little background is that I studied electronic music at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music in Ohio, in the Midwest, sorry, not Los Angeles. And I got my master's in sound art at Bard College in upstate New York. And before I relocated to Europe about 5-6 years ago, I was living in New York, and I was running an experimental music venue called West Nile. And since moving out to Europe, I've been kind of involved in a lot of different activities beyond just creative practice. Is also running a series of lectures called Sound Portraits that's about kind of innovators in electronic music history, which is also now an online radio show. And I also run a website called Dissolving Sounds, which is like a kind of a resource for sound and light art. And yeah, just in the last year, I've started teaching at this electronic music program at a college in Berlin called DBS. So yeah, my artistic work explores kind of modes of perception and our experience of sound, light, and space. And so kind of what this means is that I work with kind of immersive performances and installation works, and kind of create these high-intensity environments that can kind of exist in this crossover space where kind of our different sensory modes can be kind of manipulated or twisted, or things can kind of get blurred. And I'm fascinated with the involuntary. So kind of the way that we react to the world around us that we're not either aware of or that we're unable to control. And my focus has been sound and light, and that's because both of these mediums are these very kind of ephemeral, abstract mediums. I mean, sound itself doesn't have a very distinct meaning. It's not the same thing as like an image. Especially when you're talking about music. And so both sound and light are very ephemeral, they're abstract, but they have this really like incredible ability to move us, to control our emotions, to manipulate us. There's a reason that we use music so heavily in movies. There's reasons that the military uses so much music and so much sound. It really has such a strong effect on us, and I think that this is what really inspires me about working with these two mediums. So I've been asked to talk about technology and innovation, and so I guess the first thing I want to talk about is kind of just this idea of the connection between music and technology. Let's see, I have a little quote here. It's not just that technology impacts upon music, influences music, shapes music, because this form of weak technological determinism still implies two separate domains. Music is already suffused with technology. It is embedded within technological forms and forces it. It is in and of technology. And this idea of this kind of symbiosis between music and technology, I think, is a really kind of potent theme within my work. And I mean, you can talk about technology in music, like electronic music, techno, computers, but at its very core, every single instrument is some sort of technology. And not just that it is technology, but that movements, like developments within like architecture, developments within metallurgy, all these different things kind of led to the building of new instruments. So like the piano exists because of developments within clockmaking technology. The trumpet exists because of developments in metallurgy. So this connection, you could even say that the voice is some sort of technology. Though some people would disagree with that, but I think it's interesting. So I guess, yeah, I kind of going to jump into, that's not the next slide, but I guess it is, okay. Yeah, so I'll jump into my work real quickly. The way that I wanted to talk about it was to think about what I imagine the future to be, and then how my practice and artistic practice now can relate to that. And so one of these ideas that I envision of the future. These are all very basic ideas. It's not so sci-fi. But this idea that we'll be able to kind of plug into the machine. And what I mean by that is that we'll be able to connect to computers or some kind of electronic device and kind of have these experiences that can take over all of our senses. And virtual reality is very primitive at the moment, but it's mostly just focused on our eyes. But soon we're going to be able to kind of plug in and experience everything, all of our senses, sound, touch, smell. And I'm also curious of what are these kind of senses that maybe we haven't actually discovered yet. So being able to kind of plug into all of our senses brings us to this idea that Wagner was really interested in, called the Gesamtkunstwerk, which is a total work of art. A lot of composers are really into this idea, and it's been something for me too. So I'm very involved in this idea of immersion, and so surrounding you with sound, surrounding you with visuals, even working with kind of touch or smell. So the first work I wanted to show is this piece called Color Field Immersion. And this is a piece, it's kind of like a DIY virtual reality. And so the audience is masked in just a simple piece of paper. And I project images with just a standard projector onto their eyes. It's kind of a very bootleg version of virtual reality. You don't need a headset. And it's just kind of abstract color, texture, just light patterns. And it's related to this idea called the Ganzfeld technique, which is this kind of like perceptual deprivation. This idea that when you can't really see any shapes or forms, your brain just starts to hallucinate. And this is something that the CIA used to experiment with. There was this idea that America could spy on Russia by inducing telepathy by putting red light over people's eyes. I don't know if it worked, but so this is one of my pieces, Color Field Immersion, and this is a performance piece that I do a lot. And one of the things I also want to point out about this is that I really love this idea of taking something that I feel like is futuristic and very technological, like virtual reality headsets, and kind of making this one. This is actually just like, I think I went into a bathroom and I took a bunch of napkins from the bathroom and then used this. It's that simple. But the experience inside is so immersive and so actually physical. And you can't tell it from this photo, but there are two speakers on either side of this woman's head, and so she's being blasted with sound at the same time. Another piece I want to show, I'm sorry I don't really have videos today, but this is a similar piece called Never Here, Always There, which is more of an installation work where the audience is given these kind of masks and Bluetooth headphones, and there are projectors set up in the room, and they kind of wander around the room and explore this kind of virtual space, but it also kind of depends on how close they are to the projector and how they move and how it warps all the imagery. And so it's very immersive and very abstract, and there's a synchronicity between the light and the sound that gives it this intensity. Yeah, beyond working with these kind of virtual reality things is that I work a lot with light, just light itself. I don't like to project images on a screen because one of the things I find so exciting about sound is that it's so three-dimensional. A single sound, like in a room, is bouncing off of all the walls and reaching your ear at different times, and you get this there's a sense of space that you can get from sound. But when you project something on a screen, it kind of flattens the sound. And so I always like to work with kind of smoke and light and kind of work with light in a more three-dimensional way. Okay, I'm running out of time here. Okay, maybe the last thing that I'll say before I leave here is, just one of the ways that I use technology is that I build all my own instruments. And this is something I think that's really important for composers nowadays, is that you should develop your own instruments, and it gives you this relationship with the kind of sounds that you're making, and allows you to kind of create machines that give back to you. So all of the instruments that I build, these are ones I'll be playing later tonight, they all have a lot of kind of generative elements and randomized elements. So I can control them, but they also sort of control me to a certain extent. And I think I'm at 7 minutes. I'm at 7 minutes. Okay, I'll see you guys in a little bit.